All right, so let's start this broadcast with a big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour, where the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has condemned Amnesty International for not designating the Russian atrocities as an act of terror. This came after the organization called out Kyiv on Thursday for violating international law amidst the ongoing war. Now, Amnesty International has slammed the Ukrainian forces in its latest report for not following the international law and also for endangering civilians by establishing bases in residential areas. Amnesty, however, has also pointed out that the report is no way justifying Russia's indiscriminate attacks and also the Russian war crimes. Now, the accusations from Amnesty have also sparked some angry criticism from Kyiv. Zelensky, in his address on Thursday, said that the rights group is actually trying to spare Russia and shift the responsibility from the aggressor to the victim.
There is no condition, even hypothetically, under which any Russian strike on Ukraine becomes justified. Aggression against our state is unprovoked, invasive and terrorist. If someone makes a report in which the victim and the aggressor are supposedly equalized in some way, if some data about the victim is analyzed and the aggressor's actions are at the same time ignored, then this cannot be tolerated.
Now, the Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov has also called the report to be a perversion, and he said that it questioned the rights of the Ukrainians to even defend their own country. Now, the top presidential aide, Mykhailo Podolyak, meanwhile, has insisted that the Ukrainian forces are taking all measures to ensure that civilians are in safer areas, and has criticized the rights group for allegedly spreading Kremlin's misinformation to the rest of the world. All right, now to give us more information in terms of what's exactly happening in Ukraine, and also this interesting and rather bizarre allegation which has been put forth in the context of Ukrainian forces who've been alleged to be stationing their forces closer to the residential areas. We're being joined by retired Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Grant, who's joining us from Kyiv. Now, Colonel Grant, this is rather bizarre, is it not? Because the Amnesty International report says that the Ukrainian forces are stationing their forces close to the civilian neighborhoods, which is resulting in a lot of casualties, and the Ukrainians have hit back. What more do we know about this?
Well, the report itself, as you said, is bizarre. I mean, to focus just on the Ukrainian side, when it's Russia that started the attack, it's Russia that's targeting schools, hospitals. You remember they targeted a railway station when there were people lined up there. And it's Russia that's created the whole problem. There would be no problem for Ukraine if Russia had not attacked. Now, as for actually what the Ukrainians are doing, well, the Ukrainians are fighting where they have to fight. You can't sort of, if you're in the defense and you're fighting for the survival of your nation, you can't decide where you're going to put your troops. Russia decides that. Where Russia attacks is where Ukraine has to defend. Now, I mean, I know for a fact that they're trying extremely hard to remove civilians from the front line. At the moment, they're removing everybody they can from Donbass. Mm-hmm. Actually, my assistant, who's in a unit down near Odessa, where they are, they've actually removed all the civilians from the houses around where they're deployed. And they did that deliberately so that civilians can't be targeted. So I know that the Ukrainian army is actually doing its absolute best to remove people. Are there people in the areas you don't want? Of course there are. Have you ever tried to remove an 80-year-old lady with 10 cats from her house? You never will. It's cultural. She'll just stay there. And so there's always going to be civilians in the battle area. But I know the Ukrainians are doing their best to remove them. And this comment from Amnesty is totally and utterly bizarre.
You know, Amnesty is actually questioning the tactics that have been deployed by the Ukrainians. You know, in the past, Russia, when it has carried out certain missile strikes per se, it has said that it tries to ensure that it does not strike any civilian infrastructure. It is only going after military targets on the basis of intelligence that it has received, that there could be weapons that could have been hidden there. You know, how much truth is there in the Russian position that they're not hitting civilian targets deliberately?
Well, there's no truth in it at all. I mean, you saw that the attack on the cinema in Mariupol, which was literally just civilians. You've seen railway stations. You've seen buildings, the shopping center the other week. I mean, actually, it's the reverse of that. The Russians are deliberately targeting civilian places. They're taking no interest about the military for the majority of their attacks. Yes, of course, they're attacking military targets, but the majority of targets they are attacking are deliberately civilian to create terror.
Now, one of the recent incidents that happened was a prison facility that was targeted in the city of Donetsk. The Russians say that this was a prison facility that was housing Ukrainian soldiers who were taken prisoners of war in the Donetsk Republic, backed by the rebels. Now, Russia has accused Ukraine of hitting that prison facility with the American-given HIMARS rocket systems. They say that they also have some forensic evidence to back this up. What's the truth in that?
Well, of course, I mean, this is complete nonsense. In the first place, the people in there, they were prisoners of war, and they were, a lot of them, from Mariupol. So they were Azov battalion, and they were taken there and put there. In the second place, if you actually look at the building, when you attack from a HIMARS rocket, the rocket comes in from the top. And therefore, the thing that is actually destroyed is the roof. And it leaves a shell there. Now, if you look at the pictures of it, you can see the roof is still attacked. There's no damage around the outside that would come from a HIMARS rocket. So basically, that attack was from a bomb that was inside the building, right? That's actually killed people inside. I mean, it's so obvious. It's almost laughable that Russia should even try and pretend that this is not what they've done.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Colonel Grant, for joining us from Kyiv and getting us all those insights there.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.